Well, hello and welcome back to the Andrew Eborn Show with me, Andrew Eborn, and my very special guest, the wonderful Billy Sherwood. How are you doing, Billy?
Good, how are you? Thank you for having me today.
It is always a pleasure. And I'll tell you what's really a pleasure is that you're the other side of the world. You've got your fantastic guitars. It's like the light and the shade here, isn't it? Whereabouts are you?
Well, I'm in California at the moment in my home, and this is my studio. So yeah, just chilling in my studio as normal.
Well, you say chilling in your studio. These are extraordinary times, aren't they? Chilling in your studio is all we've been allowed to do, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Because there's nothing going on, as you know, and hopefully we're turning that corner and getting out of this now with the vaccine and herd immunity coming and all that stuff. So, you know, I can't wait for this to be over. It's gone on far too long.
I'll tell you what, we have so many fantastic artists on this show, and there's a real hunger to get out there and start performing again to live audiences.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think it's going to just be like an insane rush once that key is turned, and there's just going to be a lot of entertainment out there and a lot of concerts being seen, which, you know, I can't wait for
I reckon
to do myself and to be a part of.
Absolutely. I reckon, Billy, this is going to be the new Roaring 20s. 100 years on, we're going to have the 2021 will be the Roaring 20s, which is
right. Exactly. Well, I think everyone's obviously going to have a thirst for it, so seems natural that, you know, it'll be crazy.
But you've been incredibly productive in spite of lockdown. You've got this wonderful thing with Arc of Life. I've been listening to that great album.
Oh, cool. Thanks, man. Well, yeah, that was really a long time coming and a labor of love, and started in a peculiar way with just Jon Davison and I writing some songs for fun in the back of the bus, and it taking on a life of its own, and bringing Jimmy and Jay and Dave Kerzner online, and all of a sudden we've got this thing. I mean, that period was about 2 years, you know, in the making there, but then we finally got it on a label and out here. So we're very proud of the work and happy that it's out there. It seems to be getting a good buzz about it. You know, it's a positive feeling record, which I think is, you know, is something that is nice right now.
It's desperately what we need, and we've been talking, as I say, to lots of musicians on the show. We had Jeff Downs on very recently as well.
Cool.
And your rich history with Asia, and also with Yes, and just talking about that sort of side. He came from, as indeed did you, a musical family. And your family in Las Vegas all those time ago, your father, Bobby, I mean, he was quite a character, an actor, a musician, big band leader. Your mother as well, sensational. Talk to me about that side of your life.
Yeah. My dad was actually, like, I am the son of two musicians, my mother and my father. My dad was the son of Robert and Gail Sherwood, who were vaudevillian entertainers.
Yeah.
And my grandmother, Gail, was an amazing piano player. I have pictures that are outrageous of her endorsing a Baldwin piano way back in the day. And they strapped her piano to a balloon and flew her 3,000 feet over the fair. And she's up there playing piano. The pictures are outrageous.
Oh,
so.
And this is the day before health and safety, isn't it? Because health.
Oh my God, yes, it was not exactly. It wasn't OSHA approved by any standard, but it's an interesting thing. That my dad, you know, is born of that, and he marries my mother, who was a chorus line dancer on Broadway. They formed a family, and then had me and you know, my brothers, and you know, I lost my brother, unfortunately, a year or so back, but you know, that DNA is just in you to go forward and do it. So here I am as a product of all that. But the weirdest thing is asking my mother to buy me concert tickets and give me money to buy t-shirts, because there's this band, Yes, I have to go see when I was 12 years old. And then life evolving where it is, you know, it's just, I mean, it's crazy.
And that is the extraordinary story about Yes, because it's that sort of, it's like a concertina, isn't it? You sort of work on that sort of basis. All sorts of different fantastic musicians have been on board.
Yeah, I mean, Yes is one of those bands that it's like a magnet for great musicians, and there have been so many, and I'm sure you've seen that Yes family tree where the offshoots are just extensive and incredible, and all really rich musical projects, you know. So
it's not so much a tree as it's not so much a tree as a forest, isn't it? I would have thought.
At this point, yeah. I mean, and here we have Arc of Life now as another satellite, and as you mentioned, Downs Braid, you know, and there's all these other things Steve's doing, and Alan's band, and so, you know, I mean, it's music is a good thing to be making and pushing forward in, especially, you know, as a creative person. I mean, I know there's people who have retired and they stop. I couldn't imagine how that works, you know, like getting up in the morning and not thinking about music.
I know, and I was chatting to Susie Quattro on the show, and exactly that. And it's sort of a bit patronizing when people sort of say, when are you going to stop? You know, if it's in your blood, you never want to stop, do you?
No, it's just part of what you do every day. I mean, you know, I have my world. The only thing missing from my main routine is all the touring that is in a year. But other than that, I'm home in my studio environment. I've got all my instruments, and, you know, I'm creating, or I'm playing video games, you know, back and forth. One of the two.
Which video games are you playing at the moment?
Excuse me, my eyes are going a little nuts because we've had these Santa Ana winds up here have been really blowing up on this hill. My eyes are going a little crazy. I thought you were getting emotional talking to me. You know, it's such a moving moment. That comes later.
Okay, good.
The Oculus Quest 2 is what I play,
and
it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing,
and it's brilliant. I'll tell you what, it's like books and home games and puzzles, even the more basic things. But computers, in this time, people are working out new ways of entertaining themselves.
Oh my God, it saved my life when this first started, and I was in my house, and it was like, wait, lockdown? I don't understand what that means. You know what I mean? And you're trapped in your home basically there for a while, and so you put this thing on, and it just takes you to this other place. It's incredible. It really is. You know, I've been a gamer since Pong. Right. So, you know, I've gone the whole gamut, you know, and
we love that. Very good. Yeah. Well, I used to do lots of the licenses in the early days for, because my background is as a lawyer, I know all things. And I used to do lots of licenses for major sporting events. So things like Formula One. So I did all the original Formula One licenses with like the Sonys and the IDOS and all that sort of stuff. So the gaming world is brilliant, isn't it?
It is, and it's funny because a quick little story. I played this game on Oculus Quest the other night, and it's a social thing, so there's people in there, and this guy says to me, "How long have you been into video games?" And I just explained to you, since Pong. Yeah. He says, I said, "When did you get into video games?" He said, "Well, there's this game that came out around 1998 called Homeworld." And I said, "Wait a second. Do you remember the song?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Dude, that's the band." So it's just a funny, weird connection out of all these people, you know. So gaming is a part of people's lives, you know.
Yeah, of course it is. And the budget for some of these games, they're like feature films, aren't they?
Well, yeah, and it's only getting better. And the VR thing is just over the top. I mean, you know, if you are a gamer, you know, once you see VR, you sort of never go back. It's crazy.
Yeah, and all that sort of stuff. And I'm heavily involved with technology. We do holograms, which applies to the music side as well. The music is an integral part of any entertainment form.
Yes, I mean, the music is the backdrop to whatever vibe you're creating, and without it, it's kind of empty, for sure. You know. And music's in games big time. I mean, when we did Homeworld, for instance, you know, that was just such a different thing for Yes to be doing. I mean, quite frankly, I was the one who was pushing for it because I was a gamer. So I was like, guys, we got to get the song in a game. That's where the kids are.
Absolutely. And you need to have that sort of fresh input. And that's what I love about Yes, is you get different pieces, like a jigsaw puzzle with all musicians ever will sort of turn around and get part of that tree at some stage, won't they?
Right. Yeah. And it's just a never-ending amount of just little branches that go off from there. Yeah, it's quite unique.
And talking about that, what's also interesting as well, Billy, is looking at all the different band members, because not just those who come into the band and do splinter off, but going back a few generations, because apart from your father and your mother and so on and so forth, your godfather was quite a character.
Yes. Well, my dad was very close to Milton Berle, who became my godfather. And it's an interesting thing because my dad was in the music business the majority of his career, but he did do some film and some television and stuff. And one of the things he did for TV was to be Milton Berle's sidekick on the Milton Berle Show, which was before, you know, there was no television. And then your dad came home with a TV and plugged it in, and there was this thing called TV. And when you turned it on, Milton's show was like one of the first shows.
He was Mr. Television, wasn't he?
And so they you know, had a thing, and they became best friends, and you know, he's my godfather. And but it's funny, when I go, my dad's got a star here in Hollywood. They have this thing called the Walk of Fame on Hollywood. And my dad has a star where the old Brown Derby used to be across the street. And the icon on it is not for music, it's for television, because of this relationship with Milton, you know, out of all the stuff he did, which was, you know, amazing.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? So did you have a close relationship with Milton?
Oh, with Milton?
Milton, yeah.
Well, I mean, he was a family friend to the end, and, you know, loved our family, and we loved his family. And the last memory I have of him was around 1980. This is probably 87, right before he died, somewhere in there. And I was in this studio called The Complex that we were trying to put some demos together after Lodgic sort of was finished, the first album, and trying to get demos together to see if we could pick up pieces. And in the studio, the second engineer runs in and says, "Aren't you Milton Berle's, isn't he your godfather?" Out of the blue, and this guy says to me, I'm like, "Yeah, that's weird, but yeah, why?" And he says, "Because he's filming right down the street with Jonathan Winters. They're doing a special in this other part of the studio." So me and Mike went down there, knocked on his dressing room door. And, you know, this was the last time we saw him. But the door swings open, and he's in, it's like a classic John Hughes movie or something. He's sitting in a chair and turns around and says, "How the hell are you guys?" And he's in full drag with the lipstick and, you know, doing the old grandma character that he had. And he was really sweet, and, you know, asking about the family and stuff. Just a real loving guy. He was great, you know.
And fantastic sort of memories of that sort of side. But growing up, I mean, show business is in the fun, and it means that you, as you say, you produce, you perform, you do all that sort of side. What's really interesting is you kept it as a family affair, because some of your early memories and early musical appearances were with your brother. Talk to me about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, the earliest appearance is a little, there's a clip online somewhere of me playing with my dad's big band on stage. I think it was at the Landmark Hotel. Right. And I was like 12 or 13 and came out and played some Dixieland thing. But then, you know, I was always the younger brother, and I was in school, and, you know, I was the one that was going to never be allowed in the room because the other, you know, my brothers were 5 years older. It wasn't cool to have me around. So we didn't really connect musically until, as far as playing together, until Lodgic came about. But, you know, there was a time where Jimmy Haun, who's the guitar player of Arc of Life, Jimmy and my brother were best friends. They're 5 years older than me. Jimmy, you know, used to babysit me when I was a kid. But fast forward to, they're about 15 or 16 and I'm 10 or 11. And there's that weird gap there. And they're in the garage smoking weed, playing Close to the Edge. And I just want to get in there, and they won't let me in. So it's kind of just funny how things have worked out.
And it is weird. I mean, Chris Braid, who's also working with Jeff, as you know, he basically, it's a similar sort of thing. If you have an older brother, what happens is they can introduce you to music and your taste and that.
Oh yeah.
Was it good like that? Were you very close at that in your younger age?
Yeah, Mike introduced me to all the things that I have are mainstays for me. Weather Report, yes. Genesis, Pink Floyd. You know, up until I really started picking his brain of what he was looking at and listening to, I was listening to simpler things like, you know, Shaka Khan and Earth, Wind and Fire and Parliament and Ohio Players. And so I guess that's why I have this sort of pop thing in me when I do write in the prog genre. There's this thing that's still in there that speaks to that. But I hadn't been exposed to those other things until Mike Stewart, you know, would come in and drop a record on me and say, check out track 6. And he was always right. It's like, wow, this is cool, you know. And we constantly discovering stuff along the way then from there, me turning him stuff on and vice versa. But yeah, they turned me on to Yes when I was a kid. You know, played Close to the Edge. And I thought it was crazy, and I didn't understand how they could even bother listening to it. It was like, how can you listen to this? And then about a week later,
forever. A song is almost at 3 minutes. It's like goes on and on and on. It's like
I couldn't get past the intro when I was a kid, and then I walked by their room and they're playing it again, and it sounded a little different like the second time. And from that point on, I was just all about Yes music, even though I was taking other things on board. Yes music had a special place at the front of the record collection. You know what I mean?
Yeah, as I say, it was Jeff Downes's, actually, his elder brother, who had a big musical influence on him. And his brother remembers Jeff as a youngster painting his school shoes silver so he could look like a real rock star, that sort of stuff, which is glorious. So you then
you gotta live it.
Yeah, you've got to live it. You've got to live that dream, and yet you work on that sort of basis. So what was the catalyst then? You did that Dixie performance with your father with a big band, which must have been a great experience.
Yeah, it was great.
What happened then with Mike in terms of suggesting, let's get together, let's form a band? How did that come?
Well, it was quite by accident, really. I mean, it's a strange thing because they had a band called Lodgic that was doing Vegas stuff.
Yeah.
So one of the things they had was like a topless review that they were playing in. It was called something 77. It was 1977. And it was like, you know, they're the backing band for a Vegas type review that's going on with dancers and whatnot. And I was the younger brother, so I wasn't involved with that musically because it was like there was no way that was going to work legally, right? Yes. But then they decided to move to LA and start pursuing a record deal when a manager named Barry Morgan got involved with the band, who was key to the whole thing, bless his heart, and really motivated the guys to move to LA. And he set up shop. Barry did. He got us into the best place to rehearse at the time, was called Leeds in Los Angeles here, which happened to be owned by, and used by the guys in Toto.
Right.
So where we rehearsed, Toto was always running around. Now at the time, I was a roadie for the band because they had a bass player.
Right.
And I was the roadie and was moving the gear around. And then I got rid of the bass player, and I was in high school at the time, and there was a bass player friend of mine in high school I thought was really good, this guy. Yeah. So I suggested this guy, and they got him, and they did a couple of gigs. At this time, I was switching from my main instrument, drums, over to bass.
Right.
And right around that same time, I was living with the band, and I was playing Too Close to the Edge and Tails and Relayer, and kind of had all those things down at that point. It's at that point that Jimmy kind of looked at me and Mike, and they were like, why don't you just join this band? And so that's when I came on board. And I think I was 17, 18, something like that. So it just kind of came about purely naturally rather than a forced thing,
Yeah. It's a great opportunity to work in a band. When it is sibling, you can often clash heads. I mean, it's bad enough you have people like Oasis and so on and so forth, famously clashing heads all the time. How did you two get on when you were in the same band?
Well, there was always these little things that he and I would go off on, and they meant nothing in the grand scheme of things. It had nothing to do with any of the things that were in the present. It was just old stuff. But it would always come up, and I loved him to death. He loved me, but it was tough working together because we're very strong personalities and very different in a lot of ways. That said, Mike was so talented that I'd drag him into my projects because it was like, I need to have your skill set here. You know what I mean? But there was always those moments. I mean, especially on when I was working on Conspiracy and pulled him into that, and we got off on one of our moments, and Chris pulls me outside and he's like, do I have to be between the two arguing brothers? Can't you figure this out?
You never win. You never win when there's sibling rivalry. You're the gooseberry in the middle, if you like. It doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. But it was, at the end of the day, it was always worth it. The aggravation, I guess you could say, because he was an amazing talent, singer, player, and, songwriter in his own right. And I valued that. And, when I needed it, I'd call on it. You know what I mean?
And you had great exposure. You were performing in all sorts of places. You were recording stuff. What were your fondest memories of those sort of early band days?
Well, I think the going back to the first record, because it was such a virgin new experience being in a professional studio and spending real money on a nice place. And, we recorded in Record One in Los Angeles, which was then owned later by Michael Jackson bought it. And it's since changed hands, but the studio's still there. 2 beautiful rooms and, just classy and just gorgeous, and it was like, wow,
it's fantastic.
It felt like we'd really made it, into something. We were all very young, especially me, because I was younger than the guys.
Yeah.
And it was just a great experience. And from that moment of being in there, I was really sucking up all the knowledge I could about how does this work, and one of the other integral people in Lodgic's progression was this engineer named Tom Fletcher, who was very close to the band. And I started working with Tom and learning how to kind of work the audio a little bit better. But that experience starting there is what really made me start thinking, I have to become a producer. And, that one moment where, because it was produced, the first record was produced by Paige and Carl and Greg Ladani right there in Record One. We went to mix it though at George Massenberg's place called the Complex, which is where Milton was filming later. It would be. So when we were at the Complex mixing, and I showed up for the first day of the mix, and I went to get into the control room, it's like the door's locked. I'm like, maybe they're not here yet. And then I start hearing the music. I'm like, what's going on? And Paige leans his head out. He's like, we'll play it for you when we get there. And I thought right at that moment, I have to be the producer so I can access the room. You know what I mean? That's the main goal.
No, I think there's nothing worse than not being in the room. So whatever means can get you in there.
Well, and I understand where they were coming from, because we were a brand new band and there were 6 guys who each guy's thing wasn't going to be loud enough. You know what I mean? So they just didn't want the circus coming into the control room. I get that, and I do the same thing now. It's like, let me just do this.
But it is what I love about going to studios is there's history in every single nook and cranny, isn't there? And you think of all the great artists who've recorded.
Well, yeah, and what was cool is that Don Henley happened to be working on Building the Perfect Beast right around that time.
Right.
And he was in the same studio. So there was one day where we crossed paths in the little area there where you get coffee, and I was just like frozen. It's like Don Henley. Yeah, it's cool. So those experiences, and then obviously as you get older, those kind of change, and then eventually for me it becomes, oh my God, do I have to go to the studio? Why can't I just do this at home?
Right.
And then I start building my home studio, and now everybody's got a home studio because you have a computer in your lap. So
absolutely, and understand that some technology. I live in Regent's Park, so only about sort of a 10-minute walk from Abbey Road, so it's not too far. But the glorious history, and it's all in a way. I mean, they do all the fantastic film scores. Everybody's still harping back to the Beatles, And I think it becomes, in a way, it's like a museum. Whilst they still do some great stuff there, remembering what's happening in the music industry. Now a lot of people are doing stuff at home, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, the power that you can get out of a computer these days is remarkable in terms of recording things. And, it's just an endless palette to work with. So I think it just enhances the creativity, I think back on some of the records I made on analog tape, it's like, how did I even do that? I mean, I don't even remember how could you do that, but somehow we did. You know what I mean? It's like these old days of marking faders with tape and markers, and but now you automate an EQ as it's going through a mix, and it changes for you and then goes back where you don't need it. And, there's so much, to me, there's so much advantage that I can't really fathom the concept of ever desiring to go backwards.
Oh no, I understand, but I think there is still something. I mean, talking about Abbey Road and some of the classic studios over here, there's something about when you take an artist there. We did some of our filming for the holograms. We put some artists there, and there is something, people just feel so great to be in those iconic studios.
Oh yeah, I mean, I know what you mean on that level. I was lucky enough to do a session with Steve Lukather for one of his solo albums.
Right.
And we recorded at Capitol, where Frank Sinatra had sung, and my dad had worked in the same studio, and it's just like just being in the room is the problem is, that feeling costs you about, $3,000 a day.
It's not a cheap feeling, I know, but
it better feel really good.
Yeah, it's expensive going to places now. But what I loved about it, and Studio 2, they still had the steps where they would make those noises, and Mrs. Mills' piano, and you can do that sort of stuff. And it brings out something artistically. The creative juices seem to flow a little bit quicker.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it's a different environment. Personally, just because of how I am, workaholic and all, my studio is sort of like a fire station. It's always ready to just go. So if I come down at 2 a.m, and I'm sort of thinking of something, I just sit down and go, and it's ready to go, and it's ready to capture. And that is such, for me as a creative sort of writer all the time, is really important and handy to have, as opposed to, I've got an idea and let me book the studio. How's 2 o'clock on Tuesday? It's just a different world.
It doesn't work that way. And you have been prolific. I mean, diverse and prolific. I mean, you've done a lot of tribute bands as well. You've done a lot of some of the great bands like Pink Floyd. Talk to me about those sort of tribute things.
Well, I did a record in '93 that was a tribute to Muddy Waters, but Paul Rodgers was the feature, right? It was Paul's record, as solo. And we had Jeff Beck and David Gilmour and Slash and all these guys on there, and it did really well, and was Grammy nominated and well received. And after that, I started getting calls, could you do that same sort of model where you're bringing in people with this product and with this band and with Supertramp or with this, Floyd. And so I started making all those kinds of records, which was quite fun to do because, these were all great records that I loved. So I got to just dissect them and look at them in a way where I hadn't before. I mean, I've listened to Pink Floyd, but when I redid The Wall, it was like I've magnified how I was really studying it and found other things in there that I've never found. And then I think that record had about 40 amazing guest artists on it, from Emerson to Wakeman to, Mraz and just so many great players on there. And so it allows me to reach out to those kind of level guys and start creating those musical relationships. And after years and years of doing that, it's like I've worked with pretty much almost everyone in the frog community, except for just a few people who are holdouts and just don't want to play in the sandbox, I guess.
But they will do. Because I think what happens is when they see that others do it, it's that sort of mentality where you start to say, well, if they've done it, then I've got to do it.
Right. I'm waiting for Gabriel to call and tell me that very thing.
That phone rings a little bit later. It's got to be.
Or Sting, if you got a line on any one of those guys.
Absolutely. And apart from the cover versions, the tributes, if you like, as a solo artist, you've been really prolific. You've done, 10 studio albums?
Yeah, I mean, I got into making solo records because it's just so cool to be able to not have to ask anyone's opinion about what you're up to, and just create on your own. I love working with bands, and I'm good at, working with bands and bouncing off of what they want to do and helping them to form their vision more than mine. But when it comes to solo stuff, it's just kind of cool to be able to paint however you want to paint. And it has added up to be quite a bit of material and albums at this point. If, you're including all the stuff I did on my own, but then under the Citizen banner now, which is kind of cool. And really the Prog Collective series that's out, because it's me at the helm and inviting a bunch of other artists. And I did the same thing with the Fusion Syndicate, which was kind of cool, which is like a fusion approach to that style of making a record. And it's just, again, it's like, I get to work with all these amazing artists and just be in a creative mode with them and bounce back and forth. And it always blows me away getting files back from various people. I mean, for instance, I remember hearing David Sanchez sending me his solos on this thing for the Fusion Syndicate and just sitting there being blown away at like, wow, that's amazing, So that's, to me, what music is really all about, and exploring it and going for it,
Yeah.
And then you put it out and you let people hear it. And it's funny, some people have a more open mind about music and see bigger pictures, and others have kind of a finite view on how they look at things. And,
well, both Jeff Downes and Chris as well, they were sort of saying that what they do like, you can get all the commercial success because you need that to put the bread and butter and champagne on the table. But actually having the opportunity to explore music just for the sake of exploring music is a real luxury, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it's just something that sort of feels like it's feeding the soul a bit, because it's like watching a painter paint. You just, without being bothered by what's going on the canvas and making a beautiful picture. It's working in that solo environment is all about that. And working in other capacities of music is, I enjoy sometimes just engineering for people, where I don't play a note, but I'm mixing the project for them, or producing it from afar, or without touching an instrument. So any way that it's involved with music is good for me, and I enjoy every aspect of it, because it keeps getting interesting. One day I'm engineering and playing with effects and EQs, and the next day I have to play bass, and then someone wants a drum track, and so I'm kind of all over the place, but I like it that way, and keeps my chops up, Yeah,
absolutely. And so apart from that sort of ability to go and explore your own things, you were introduced, was it Derek Schulman who introduced you in 1989?
Yeah, Derek signed my second album with Bruce Gowdy. We had a band called World Trade, and Derek signed it to Polydor, and it was a huge deal. And right when our record was starting to go to breaker and we were really doing great in the charts, Derek left that company and becomes the president of Atco Records, where he's working with Chris, Tony Kaye, Rabin, and Ellen White. And basically it's Yes without a lead singer. Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, Howe are on Arista at the exact same time, touring as the symphonic Yes thing. So Chris and the band were exploring the idea of having a different singer. And so that's where Derek said, well, I had this guy who was in this band World Trade, and I don't think Polydor is going to push him any further, because I left and I was the one who signed him. Let's grab him. So he introduced me to Chris, and we became fast friends. And long story short, everyone thought it was a great idea for me to be the lead singer except for me, and I just did not want to do it. I knew it would be career suicide. I could sort of sense that this union thing was coming, and that if I was in that loop, I would have just been stomped and out of the way. And and I just saw my career path differently than that. And so I backed out of it in that regard, but remained as producer and writer a bit on, the Union record and some box set stuff. But that's where it started. And Derek was a key character in all of that taking place.
And you sometimes need those people who act as the glue, if you like, introducing you to Chris. And as you
say, yeah, and I'm blessed again that it's, not only with the Yes connection, but I mean, Gentle Giant was one of my favorite bands growing up, and Derek was one of my vocal heroes. For me, it was Anderson, Wetton, Derek, and the guys in Floyd, Gabriel. That level. But Derek being way up there on my list, and I'm a huge Gentle Giant fan. So I saw their last show in LA in 1980.
Right.
So to be able to sort of have him acknowledge he was digging my stuff, which turned out to be $1 million deal, so obviously he was digging it, was really just like a mind blower and an honor. And then we just remained friends over so many years, and still remain friends. I mean, he's a big part of this Arc of Life thing by proxy, of just bouncing off of him and editing and sort of co-producing it, really. So he's just a super, super cool dude and an ally, and one of my favorite musicians. Obviously listen to Gentle Giant, the guy knows music pretty well.
That's the thing, isn't it? But it's those sort of relationships, and your relationship with Chris, I mean, that dominated the sort of whole history for the next 20 years, didn't it, from that first sort of introduction? Talk to me about
I mean, I went in and out of Yes and did other things, but Yes was always this, every time I worked with Yes, I always thought it was the last time it would ever happen.
You're not the only person who says that.
I mean, when as I said, when I saw Union coming and backed out of that whole hype that was going on, I thought, well, that's the end of it. I got a song on the record, and okay, cool. And then the next thing I know, I'm being called a few years later to go tour on the Talk Tour and sort of be a supplemental component on the tour as an extra musician. I thought, cool, yeah, you know. And then when that was done, I watched the band break up, and at the airport, basically, and everybody goes their separate ways. And I thought, that's the end of that. And then I get called to work with the classic lineup in a production capacity, and so on and so on. So it's been a strange thing, you know. A lot of people think I sort of jammed my way in there, but the reality is I just sort of answered the call every time it came in, and it came in often. The last one was the real mind blower, though, when Chris called and was sick, and you know, that whole thing. But I've always answered the call for yes, because I love the band, you know.
Of course. Well, talk. I mean, you touched on the time with Chris and the end, which must have been very, very difficult because he was a friend apart from anything else. Even you, as you say, you're in and out of yes, but you throughout that 20-year period, you were still talking on a fairly regular basis, weren't you?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know. We were close, and I was working with him. I mean, I mixed the Heaven and Earth record for the guys, so I was there, and yeah, I was working actually on the Citizen record and the first one, and I got asked Chris to play on it. I went to Phoenix and set up my studio in this little funky, you know, Ramada Inn or whatever it was, and he came over and we recorded there in the hotel, and had laughs like we always do. He looked great, you know. He was same Chris we always knew and loved. And went out to dinner that night, and then I drove home, you know, to work on the stuff, and that's when, you know, him and his wife called back and said that, you know, he's kind of sick, and they let me in on what was going on. From that to the end was 6 weeks, you know, so that's pretty quick. But we were talking deeply in that period about a lot of things, and you know, he really wanted yes to continue, and that was his main theme. So I've kind of taken that on as a badge of honor and a purpose, which, you know, I already serve the band in whatever capacity they want me to. I just never expected it to be this, and it was shocking and sad and strange the first tour, but as time goes on and you start to, you know, time heals, as they say, the fans really made it so that it was, for me mentally, I could wrap my head around this and be okay with it, and because they were so sort of supportive and just there, and also the band, you know, being the way they were. So now that's where I am. And again, going back to where this all started, you know, asking my mother to buy me a freaking concert ticket. It's just such a bizarre circle of life that, you know, it's a strange destiny. What can I say?
the good thing, but it is always difficult when you have such an established brand, if you like, and you've got a loyal fan base. For anybody to step into the shoes is really, really difficult. But I guess the saving grace, if you like, or the encouragement, was Chris himself. I mean, he effectively gave you his blessing, didn't he?
Oh, without a doubt. And, you know, he, you know, we had such a relationship going out inside the band and outside the band musically, obviously, with all the conspiracy stuff we've done. And it's just, we had that relationship. I mean, we were like brothers in a lot of ways, because there were some periods, and, you know, I mean, I knew him since what, 88 was when we first sort of met, at 89 until he left us here. That's a long time. And inside there were a couple of moments where he and I, we didn't talk for a while. I mean, one of them, funny enough, is, and we laughed about it after we got back together and sort of, you know, mended our fences. But when that whole thing was going on where they wanted me to be the singer, you know, I kept telling Chris, I'm not into it, you know, and he would call me, it's going to be so great, it's going to be awesome. And, you know, and I would go, dude, I'm not into it. I mean, I want to work with you, and you are my hero. Don't get me wrong. We can go out to dinner and hang out, do everything, and write songs, but it's like, I'm not going to be the lead singer of Yes. You're not, you know, you're not hearing me. And he would kind of laugh it off. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And that became like sort of a running gag for about 10, 12 days, until around the last, the end of the second week, it was getting old. And I said to Chris, look, I'm serious. Okay, you really need to stop, and you need to tell everyone on your side of the fence that it's a no-go. And oh man, come on. I said, I swear to God, Chris, let me put it to you this way. If you call me tomorrow and you mention this, I swear to God, as much as I love you, I'm going to change my phone number. It's just as simple as that. So sure enough, he called me the next day. I went, that's it. And hung up the phone and changed my number. He's the only person I've ever changed my phone number.
You did change your number.
Change the number. Everyone I know, do not give Chris my number. And we didn't speak for, at least until they were on tour for the Union record. Well, around the when they got the Union record together, because he called me and said, look, it's all back together. Don't sweat it. We're good. And by the way, the song we wrote, The More We Live, is going to end up on there. And I said, great, I'm happy. And we got together, went out and had dinner and laughed. But oh my God, you know what I mean? So we were like brothers that close that it was like, but I'm happy to say that from, heaven and earth on, and a little bit before that even, we were very close to.
And sometimes it takes that closeness, and in the same way as you had with your brother, is you fight like cats and dogs occasionally. You've got to do that, but that's that sort of creative energy. But it's
and unlike my brother and I, though, my brother and I were Pisces and Scorpio, so it was like Chris and I were like 10 days apart in our birthday. We were a lot alike in a lot of ways, in humor, in just dry and sort of reading the room a certain way. And we just had a certain bond in that way that was unique. And the other guys in the band kind of knew it when I was in the band. And that's why we ended up calling it conspiracy. I said, they think we're up to stuff, you
right.
and I. It's like, let's just give them something to talk about.
Well, it's coming up to your birthday, isn't it? March the 14th. It would have been around this time.
It is. And this will be the second birthday that I've got to do where it's like we're not touring. That's just drives me absolutely mad.
It's crazy. How did you ever celebrate your birthdays together? I mean, as you say, you're only 10 days apart or whatever it is, really, really close.
Well, yeah, we used to. And there's a funny story behind that one too, because we were in Milan, I think, whatever it was, 2000, however old I was. I don't remember, 35, 38, something like that. And we're in Milan, and it was Chris's birthday before, and Jon had got the audience to sing him happy birthday, which was really sweet.
Yeah.
And we all sing him happy birthday, and so this night Jon says, it's Billy's birthday, let's sing him happy birthday. Was I sing him happy birthday? Chris looks over at me and he's got his drink, he cheers me. And then a couple minutes, a couple songs later, did I mention it's Billy's birthday? Jon says, let's sing it to him in Italian. And they sing it to me in Italian. And now Chris is kind of looking at me funny. And he's got his glass, but he's not cheering. He's just kind of sitting there. I look at him, I'm like, what? Like I gave Jon $20 to have them sing me the song again? And so the eyes roll a little bit on Chris. To know him was to love him. A couple songs later, Jon goes for it again. One more time for Billy's birthday. And I can see Chris is bothered by this because he only got one.
Right.
And we went out to drink that night after the gig. And I remember I said, what was with that attitude, man? He's like, well, I only got one of them and you got three of them. I'm like, who cares? You should be happy for me. It's my birthday. Get over it.
Funny stuff.
Yeah. So we had moments that were very funny like that. Yeah. They're great memories of Chris, that's for sure.
And it must have been. So tell me then, when you heard the news, because it wasn't a complete shock, because you knew he was not well you had like a 6-week period, didn't you? It's very When you actually got the call, tell me where you were and what happened.
Well, it was more an email, and the way that it led up to it, it was under the impression that because I kept saying to Chris, look, you're going to come back, and please tell the world that you're coming back and that I'm just here filling in for you while you get better. So he made a statement and put that out there. And that was the banner I was under. And every time I talked to him, I'm like, you're going to be fine. People beat this. You're going to be good. I didn't, the last like 4 or 5 days I hadn't talked to him, and I did get word that he's going in for some serious chemo or something, whatever it was. So he might be off the radar a bit. I had been sort of, working out in the morning and walking in the back of my property where there's this huge mountainous area. You just go out there. So I went out and took a morning walk. It was like 4:35 in the morning. I was getting up very early. And when I came back, I opened my email and it just said Chris from the management. And I kind of knew what I was about to open and read, you know what I mean? And it was very hard to hit click. And sure enough, that, that's how I found out. And it was just awful, awful.
And devastating. June the 27th, 2015, wasn't it? And it was the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they'd announced beforehand on the 19th of May that you'll effectively be replacing him on the tour.
Yeah. Well, we didn't expect it to be that way. But he, as I said earlier, that's what he wanted, was it to go on. I mean, it started, the funny part, if there's any funniness inside that 6 weeks, was when he called at the first part of it, and after he told me he was sick and going into the hospital, he called me the next day and he says, I'm just so bummed because I want the tour to go on. I mean, there's so many downsides to it, just disappointing the fans and, all the crew who have to make a living and the guys in Toto who made the time to do this. And I said, no, I get all that, Chris. And you're right. It's nice of you to think of that. But I said, but, look, you're Chris Squire. It's just going to have to wait. And he goes, yeah, I guess you're right, So then the next day he calls me and he basically says the same thing again. And I basically say the same thing, except I add to him, look, you need to call the band and tell them to wait. And he goes, yeah, okay, good. And then I'll talk to you tomorrow. And he calls me the next day and he gives the same story. And I go, Chris, we spoke about this yesterday. You need to call the guys in the van and just tell them to wait. And Chris says, you're just not getting it. I said, what? He's like, I want you to do this. And that moment was the most sad of all, because it was just, that was really the moment where the reality of the situation was just right in your face. But I still remain optimistic, because I'm just optimistic about life, that he could beat it. I've known people who had what he had and managed to live. So I was very optimistic with him every time I talked to him after that. And just, he would call and say, so, look, when you're playing Heart of the Sunrise, do you know about the blah, blah, blah? And I go, yeah, I got that. He's like, yeah, I knew you had that. I just wanted to call. So there was a time he asked me, you sure you don't want my gear? I said, Chris, I got all my stuff. He's like, yeah, I know. You're good. Don't worry about it. And so it was just sweet of him, the way he was approaching it. And the whole thing he was approaching was the band. He wasn't calling to go, my God, what do I do? I've got cancer. He was actually, every time I talked to him, talking about the band and how to keep it going. And, so to me, that was just such a heavy period that it's sometimes difficult online. I try not to pay too much attention to it, but sometimes online you'll see these people who's like, no, Chris Squire, no, yes. And they just don't understand that that's exactly the opposite of what the man wanted. So, no, you know what I mean?
As you say, Billy, he wanted it to continue. And so rather than mourning the loss, you should celebrate the life. And there's no better way of doing that than carrying on the legacy.
Exactly. And, yes, music itself sort of supersedes the whole at this point, because it's like an orchestra, it's tantamount to these orchestral pieces of music that are going to be around forever. I'm sure at some point there's going to be 5 AI robots that are going to be up there and just nail it every
holograms. I've told you, I'll introduce you to some.
You know,
that's the reality. That's the reality, is that that the next stage of music, you will know that you can recreate all of this, and they can not only recreate the past, but they can start devising music in the same sort of feel. And so you think it's a new Yes album.
Yeah. I know the future is exciting on that level. That's for sure. But yeah, you know, Chris was a huge part of my world, you know, which is where you started. You know, Chris and Yes and the whole thing was a huge part of my world. And I, you know, through the process of starting meeting Chris and really, you know, Chris introducing me to Alan and Tony, but it's a big family now, really. And, you know, we have gone through things where this guy doesn't like that guy and this guy doesn't, but the family bond remains the same, you know.
And you must have earned your wings by now. I mean, since 18.
Oh my God, you know, it's like at this point, there's a lot of people who discount it just, you know, at face value, but it's like I've served. You know?
But there must, a day mustn't go by when you don't think of your time with Chris.
You know, he's always on my mind, mostly, you know, because Yes is such a huge part of my world, and he's always coming to my mind. And most certainly when I'm on tour, you know, and playing his stuff, he's there. And there's little moments I'll play the part. Out of a 20-minute piece, there might be this one little passage that I'll play and just go, oh my God, that's so cool right there, you know, or think about him, or, you know, it's going to be there forever. Let's just, you know, what can you do?
I guess while you're playing the set, there must be moments when Chris told you, oh no, don't do that, do this.
Well, we never got into it on that level because we never crossed paths where he was looking at me playing the bass, really. I mean, the only time he was watching me play bass with Yes was when we did the intro to Endless Dream on the Talk Tour, which was a totally unique moment. And in a weird way, looking back on Yes history, I mean, that was an amazing moment on Chris's part, because I really didn't want to do it, because I thought it was taking away that thing that Chris is, you know. And he was the one who said, no, you know, I want to bring you out. I want to do this and show us doing this thing, you know. And I was thrilled by that. And so we did it. And it's a pretty tricky little part. There's a great video clip of it from Chile or something. And but that's looking back at what a unique moment that is, that there's actually two guys standing there. And that's where the changing of the guard is going to be. I mean, it's just, you know, there's a lot of very strange stuff going on in my in my world. What can I say?
I know, we had to dig out all this footage. I love the idea with you and your father in the early days doing Dixie and the big band and the one move on stage. It's going to be the perfect movie of your life at some stage.
Right. If anyone's interested in seeing it, it's certainly bizarre to me. That's for sure. You know,
it's interesting. And I mean, apart from Yes, another massive explosion in 2017 is when you joined Asia. Talk to me about that.
Well, that was another sort of chapter of sadness from a mentor, because Jon was one of my heroes going back to UK, King Crimson, and, you know, all those great bands. And I got to meet and really get close with Jon when we worked on his solo album called Raised in Captivity. Before then, I had been doing tons of tribute records, and he was always a willing participant.
Right. And
so one day I said to him, we need to maybe do something original sometime. What would you think about that? And he's the one who said, well, look, I just so happened to be making another solo album for Frontiers when I come to LA, and you and I'll write it. So he came to town, and we sat in my studio like this for 30 days and wrote and produced that record, and then farmed out parts to people. But basically, he and I together every day for 30 days, and we had nothing but fun. I mean, making great music and laughing, because we share similar sort of lanes with people we knew, and it just was funny to have these conversations with Wetton. And so we kind of bonded and became friendly and whatnot. Every time they came to town, I'd go see them. And I wasn't as close with Wetton as I was with Chris, obviously, but close enough, I suppose, because, you know, when I got the call that they wanted me to do it, because Wetton is now fallen ill, I was again just blown away. One of my heroes asking me to do this, but there was no way, like with Chris, that I was going to say no to John Wetton. You know what I mean? Especially in that situation. So I jumped in, and you know, they were kind of in a bind with time because they were committed to this Journey tour. And so I ended up singing lead and playing bass, and we went out and did it. Subsequently, afterwards, when there's time to sort of regroup, it made sense to bring Ron Thal in, obviously, because his voice is, I think, more suited for the role than mine, maybe. You know, I mean, I sound like me, but not Wetton, and Ron's kind of got a little, I mean, maybe because it's a higher pitch, but Ron's got a lower, sort of more warmer sound for that. So it just made sense to do that. And he's a fantastic guitar player, obviously. So it was just a great experience and continues to be. And I think that you're going to see more of it as we go forward and the world comes back.
Oh, no, absolutely. I was talking to Jeff Downs about it as well. How do you find working with Jeff?
Well, Jeff is great and a stellar musician, super smart, you know, musically knows his everything. And he's also kind of a computer nerd like, you know, I am. And so we relate on a lot of levels. And, you know, it was just really fun to be in two bands with the guy, you know what I mean? And, you know, he's the buggle, for goodness sake. So
video killed that radio star, you know, talking about
what's not to love about being in a band where your keyboard player is from the Buggles and Yes, you know, and Asia. So it was great. I mean, the last tour that we did where Asia opened for Yes.
Yeah.
And you look across stage and Steve Howe's there and Carl and Jeff. I mean, you know, I have these moments on stage, you know, even though I've done this routinely at this point, but there are those moments where I look across the stage and go, how the hell did I end up here? How's this happening? Steve Howe's the guitar player in two of my bands. How does that work?
It is quite extraordinary. And in the book and the film of you doing, the cast is going to be tremendous because you've worked with so many other great bands as well. Talk to me about Motorhead.
Oh my goodness. Well, Motorhead's obviously, you know, that band that everybody knows, and they're just insane. Yeah. And Lemmy was crazy, but crazy smart. You know what I mean? He knew exactly what he wanted. And I came in there produce. I was pretty young and willing to just jump into anything at that point. So I sort of jumped in and it was like, oh my goodness, this is a whole different world here. But we managed to make a pretty good sound out of the whole thing. And there was respect there because I had come in after the Paul Rodgers record, and Phil Carson, who was the head of JVC at the time, you know, explained to Lemmy, this is your guy, you know, so the relationship was set to move forward in a positive way in the studio. And we just went in and knocked it out as LA burned, basically. It was during the Rodney King riots.
Wow, no.
I was in the studio working on Hell on Earth with Lemmy. So it was very, very strange, but a great time and a learning curve for me of that metal, hard, just in your face stuff. So
yeah, it was quite strong. I saw his very last concert over here in London when he was supported by the Damned. I mean, and it's an iconic moment. Those sort of moments in history, you just stay with you, don't they?
Yeah, no, and they're so important for people. I mean, for me, in my career and my sort of compass was set on a direction. I mean, I knew I wanted to be in the music business because there's mom and dad doing their thing and Mike plays. I got to do something. I'm not sure what it is, but I know I'll do something. And then I go see Yes at the Aladdin, you know, doing the Going for the One tour. And I'm sitting there at 12 years old watching Chris doing his thing and seeing Alan and the band. And it was just like, it locked in. And it's like, I don't know what or how I'm going to do something like that, but I'm going to do that. And you know, it just took off from there. So those are super important moments for people. You know,
and you've also had some extraordinary left field moments, probably the best way of doing it, and not least the season 14 of Hell's Kitchen with William Shatner.
Well, that's what you get when you hang out with William Shatner. It's like I produced Shatner's solo album called Ponder the Mystery. We co-wrote it together. We sang it together. Performed it live actually with Circa, did some shows, you know, which is pretty cool when you look over on stage and Captain Kirk is your lead singer. That's kind of a cool thing and unique. but yeah, I mean, there we were doing a gig somewhere in LA, and I was backstage just hanging out, and I see Shatner's getting all dolled up in his suit, and I'm like, "What are you doing, bro? It's a little early. The gig's not till 8:00. It's like 6:00. What's going on?" And he goes, "They're here. Get your suit on." And I said, "Who's they, and why am I wearing a suit at 6:00? The gig's not till 8:00." He said, "Hell's Kitchen's here. I didn't tell you." I said, "No." And he tells me, "Hell's Kitchen tonight. We are he is the prize for the winning team."
Blue team,
and I'm like,
blue
"Well,
team
get in
prize.
there.
That's it.
Get in there and go do it, man." And he goes, "You made this record with me. You got to come with there with." So he kind of demanded I throw my suit on and went in. So we went in and did it, but it was crazy. But I'm a huge Gordon Ramsay's fan, so any way I could get 6 degrees of separation, I'm happy.
Yeah, I think it's great. Well, I live in the heart of London. We used to go along to Gordon Ramsay's restaurant before anybody who knew Gordon Ramsay was. So it's wonderful days. And he's got a new TV series over here. He's got a quiz show called Bank Balance and things like that. But Kitchen Nightmares are great series.
Oh my God, the first few are so great. I mean, the boxer, the little short boxer, dude, that guy's unbelievable. Oh my God, yeah, that's great.
But you've done other collaborations as well, because as we touched on earlier, the diversity of what you've done, phenomenal success, touring, wonderful albums. You also had this thing with your partner in, what was it, 2019, May 2019, Billy and partner Elisa Fur. Tell me about that.
Oh dear. Well, that was...
Was that, oh dear? Is that not a moment of reminder?
No, I'm kidding. Elisa Fur was an amazing singer who I was dating at the time.
Yeah.
And she had her career in Vegas and whatnot. And she wanted to put together this all-star band and try to get to do some gigs in Vegas, maybe a residency here and do some things. So we were toying around with that idea. So myself, Jay, and Guy, and guitar player whose name escapes me right now, sort of agreed to do it. And so that's what that was. But unfortunately, it just didn't really pan out.
But it's one, I will leave it there. So that, but these things, but this is what I love about it though, because it's not, and it doesn't faze you. It doesn't faze you at all, because it was right to do at the time, wasn't it?
Well, I think that if you don't try things and you don't explore regions that are, have potential, that you're never going to know, are you? I mean, you got to go for it. And that's, I think, the whole thing about being a musician and, a producer and an engineer and is you just got to go for it. Whatever's there to do it and give it a shot. Obviously, if some things work out and they don't, I mean, you always put bands together, for instance, thinking they're going to last forever, in terms of like, but normally they sort of have their own little lifespan, unlike a band like Yes, which is unique, and these other iconic Floyds that are still out there. And, but for the most part, when you're building bands, you hope for the best, but sometimes it doesn't work out, like Lodgic, for instance, or these other things. But if you don't try and you don't swing at the ball, you're never really going to get in the game,
Absolutely. And it's these little stepping stones, isn't it? I always say that if necessity is the mother of invention, then failure is the father of success.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
So you work on that sort of basis. So Arc of Life, I love it because you've taken bits of Yes. Talk to me about how that suddenly evolved.
Well, as I said, when we first started, it was John and I riding in the back of a bus, and we came up with the material. We kind of realized that it wasn't just songwriting, that there was something special going on, and maybe this is a band. And so then Jay and Jimmy and Dave come into view, and we put it together. And as I said, it took a couple of years to pull together, but here we are with this record, and we're really looking forward to getting out on the road and playing it live and sort of getting it seen in a proof of life sort of way. We're managed by the same people who manage Yes and Asia, so
that's easy. Again, you can do 3 sets on one night, can't you? You could be
the calendar can be worked in a way that nothing conflicts, so that should be completely not a problem. So it's really just a matter of the world coming back, and when that happens, and hopefully it's going to happen sooner than later.
Oh no, absolutely. And where would you like the first gig to be?
I'd take a Starbucks at this point. You know what I mean? It's like, where is it? What's it pay? Let's get on with it.
Right.
I miss working like that. You know, we had such an amazing cycle going on and was consistently doing our thing. So it's been really strange to just halt, you know, and just stop.
But it is really weird. And what people don't realize, I mean, well, maybe they do, is the planning that goes into these major tours. I mean, it takes months and months to do. So it's no good people just saying, right, off you go, you can start again now. You need to, how much is the lead time normally?
I think you need at least 3 months in front of a tour, probably.
At least. I mean,
at least, you know, but we were in a cycle where, you know, we were kind of staying in that pattern. So we'll just have to see. I mean, the entertainment was one of the first things to go, and it's probably going to be one of the last things to come back, unfortunately, which is a real drag. But that's just the way things are, you know. So I agree with you that I think we're going to see the Roaring 20s. You know, it's going to look like Black Friday at a Walmart when they finally allow everyone to go back out there and do things. I'm still waiting to be able to eat inside of a restaurant.
Oh, I know. Well, that's but I say they're gradually saying that things might come back, but they need to wait until certain things are happening.
Right, and I get all that, but you know, I'm growing very, like, you know, it does drive you a little bit mad to think about how.
I understand. But over such, I mean, it's been fascinating talking, Billy. It's always a delight. You must come back on the show. But just 3 final things then. I mean, it's such an extraordinary career. What has been your biggest regret? You
know, I was asked that before on another interview, and I don't really
have any. This interview, you could give a better answer.
Well, I'll give you that. That's true. This has been much more fun to do. I don't really have any regrets because, you know, everything that I thought was a regret turns out to become a different reality downrange, and it's without one, you don't have the other. So, you know, I've never really had any regrets in terms of career choices or what I'm working on or who I'm working with. And I've always been very proud, thank God, you know, luckily, for all the music that I've been involved with. So, you know, I think if I was born now in this age with video games being the way they are, I probably wouldn't have played much music, and I would have regretted that. So in a strange way.
Pong was enough to let you have another activity, but some of the games now.
Well, back in the day, you know, when there was none of that and the internet, you know, I was playing the records to escape and to have fun and to, you know, and to also get better, but it was more to escape and have fun than anything. And that became a career, and I'm still escaping and having fun. I mean, that's kind of all I do is escape on the road and have fun playing with Yes. So, you know, that's the life, and I just miss that, and I can't wait till that comes back. That's for sure.
I mean, the other thing which must have been really tough, and we touched on this beforehand, is when your brother passed. Talk to me about that.
Well, it was a complete shock to us all, and it still is hard. And you know, bless her heart, my mother. You know, I mean, she's a strong woman to go through what she's gone through, and still able to get out on the golf course and just hit a hole in one on a par 3 at her age. So she's a very strong woman, but it took us all by surprise, and it was a huge shock. Still is. And I'm working with David Paich on his solo album, and he's got a track on the record that Mike had written with him, with Paich, and sang. And David asked me to do the background vocals. So I was recently here in my studio doing, you know, vocals at night with Mike right there. And it was as if he was standing next to me. It was just such a strange experience, you know. So I miss him, and we all miss him. But, you know, life is just filled with these unpredictable turns, you know, that leave us just stunned. It takes time to move on, you know. But I'm a believer that you have to move on in their name, in their spirit, and do good things, and that's what they want, you know. I mean, there was a time when, after I was on stage kind of feeling really bummed out for the first tour, that Chris was gone. And at some point, I just kind of had this thought that it's like, you know, as much as I laughed with the guy, the last thing he'd want is for me to be kind of sad on stage. So I have to turn this around respectfully somehow. And so I think that's how we have to move forward when we have loss. And Mike was certainly a huge, huge loss, you know.
I think it's, as you say, I mean, you had with Chris Squire, you had it with John Wetton, you had it with your brother. It's about, of course, they're never going to be able to be replaced, but they would want you to celebrate the life rather than mourn the loss, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, I know that's what I would want. I wouldn't want everyone sitting around being sad. I would want people to put some music on and have a drink and have a laugh about how stupid my life was. So.
It's a great way. And the highlight, what would you say out of so many highlights? What would be your favorites?
Well, there are many, but I think one of the most pinnacle moments just of a wow, how did this happen? And it was playing Madison Square Garden with Yes in 1994, because that was my first tour, like really touring. And it was top drawer and playing Madison Square Garden.
Madison Square Garden, come on, you've arrived, haven't you?
I mean, and that's the venue that they did that broadcast when Drama came out, right? So it had this significance. And
1994, yes, Madison Square Garden. What more?
Yeah, it was just a mind blower. And I mean, but there's always so many different weird mind blowers. I mean, playing Royal Albert Hall.
Yeah.
Whenever we do that, it's just, you know, it's a blessing to be able to play in some of these places and think about the rich history of all these places. It's just remarkable, really, you know.
Quite remarkable. And finally, then, Billy, I always ask all my guests this, especially in the current climate. Billy, how would you like to be remembered?
Well, as constantly pushing forward, really. You know, whether it's music or just living to live life and enjoying life and being optimistic about life and just pushing forward, you know, because I think that's what we're here for in whatever we do, you know, adapt and overcome. We're all dealing with that right now, that's for sure. But we're seeing the light at the end of that tunnel, you know, and pushing forward into it. So just moving forward, you know.
Moving forward in that.
I think people remember music. The music's there to be remembered, you know, obviously, and I'm sure there's still going to be people on Threads who just will bash it, but it is what it is. Just keep going forward.
Just keep saying yes, because whatever new stage of yes it's going to be, it's going to be good.
Right, exactly. You know, that's the internet.
Billy, it's been such a delight catching up. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, man. It's been real fun. So anytime, man. We'll talk soon.
I look forward to it. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care, brother. See you, man.
Bye. So thank you again to my very special guest, Billy Sherwood. If you would like to be a guest or have any suggestion about guests, write to me at guests@octopustv.com. That's guests@octopustv.com. Don't forget, you can follow me at Andrew Eborn at OctopusTV on all of the usual platforms. And don't forget to subscribe. It's lovely having you on board. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.